Kugelman, the Deputy Director of the Asia Programme and Senior Associate for South Asia at the Wilson Centre. Always a pleasure to have you on, Michael. How much would international recognition of the Taliban help Afghanistan's current predicament?
Well, international recognition would help a lot, just because it's only once you have recognition when you can expect the Taliban to start getting financing, just because countries are more likely to provide financing to the Taliban if they've recognized the Taliban government. And for now, it looks like there's consensus among the G20 and the international community on the whole to provide assistance that's humanitarian. In other words, to provide immediate humanitarian relief and supplies that would not go through the Taliban government. It would be provided to the UN and to charities. But the U.S. and other Western countries have taken a position that broader development assistance and civilian assistance will not go to the Taliban government, and it will not be provided unless the Taliban agrees to provide assurances and indications through actions that it's willing to promote human rights, women's rights, have a more inclusive government, and the like. And the Taliban does not appear to be going in a position where one could expect that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, after their direct face-to-face talks in Doha over the weekend, the Taliban said the Americans have agreed to send us humanitarian assistance and have agreed that we can be involved in its distribution. And yet there's been no word from DC about what the Taliban said regarding that particular issue. What about the Assistant Secretary of State, Michael, Wendy Sherman, when she said over the weekend that the Taliban is not living up to its commitments? What did she mean?
Well, she means that the conditions that the U.S. has placed on recognition of the Taliban government have not been met. And again, I'm talking here about issues like having more inclusivity in the government, showing more of an indication that the Taliban will respect human rights and women's rights. And let's be very clear. I mean, something like the fact that, at least for now, the Taliban has essentially said that older girls cannot go to school, with some exceptions. That's a red line right there for the U.S. government. That's something that the U.S. is going to be looking for a change on. If the U.S. starts seeing that the Taliban has said that older girls, secondary school level girls, can go back to school, that would be seen as a good sign here in Washington. But that's not it. It'll go a lot beyond that. My own view is that we're not going to see the U.S. Be willing to recognize this Taliban government anytime soon, if at all. That doesn't rule out engagement between the U.S. and the Taliban, and we saw that. You had senior U.S. officials meeting with Taliban reps in Doha this weekend. But so there can certainly be engagement over issues like ensuring the safe evacuation of U.S. citizens still in Afghanistan, or the delivery of humanitarian supplies to Afghanistan in a way that the Taliban will not pose an obstacle. The U.S. is happy to engage with the Taliban on those levels. But in terms of broader formal engagement, including the provision of development assistance and civilian assistance to the Afghan government, to the Taliban government, that's not something that the U.S. is going to be ready to do anytime soon.
You know, when you look at the list of countries that produce the most refugees over the past decade at least, Afghanistan has been right up there at the top or very near the top. Do you see a continuing or possibly even an increased number of refugees, people leaving the country and hoping to find something better elsewhere?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the silver lining is that at least for now, the war is over in Afghanistan formally. So that means that conflict will not be the trigger for refugees that it had been in previous years. But economic stress will be a trigger. And certainly with the humanitarian crisis not easing, that will mean you'd have more mass migration of Afghans. And with Afghanistan's neighbors not being as willing to take on the large number of Afghan refugees that they had in the past, countries like Pakistan and Iran, that means that Europe is going to become a big destination for Afghan refugees. So for the EU countries now, a lot is at stake for them, because if they are not willing to provide enough assistance to Afghanistan to ease the crisis, very soon Europe will be facing a new refugee challenge, a refugee crisis, because you will see Afghans trying to come to Europe. It's been happening over the last few years, but it could happen even more, especially if Pakistan and Iran are not as willing to take in as many refugees as they have been in the past.
Michael, thank you so much indeed. Michael Kugelman from the Wilson Centre.